Weather's so nice, I thought I'd do this one outside. What a performance from Arsenal. Absolutely brilliant. And I have to say, this was one of, for me, the most pleasing performances I've seen all season. And yes, we've played better football. Yes, we've had games where we've had more control over games. But what I absolutely loved, what I absolutely adored about this performance was the fight. It was just incredible to see how far Arsenal have come. And do you know what really brings it into stark comparison for me is our last game in the Premier League against Chelsea. That Chelsea team is exactly what Arsenal used to be. Players that regard doing the hard yards as optional. And today, not a single player let us down. That first 10 minutes could have set the tone for a really demoralising defeat. And it would have done that for a lot of teams in the Premier League. The way Newcastle started, it was very intentional, was to sort of like batter us into submission. You know, sometimes when your back is against it in football, you see players just take a little bit longer than they need to. Like you look at the game and instinctively you think to yourself, oh, you can get that. And then you think, oh, in that moment, the other opposition player just got to it fairly comfortably, more comfortably than what you thought they should have or could have. That's because your player is intentionally going a little bit slower, going maybe the long way round or just hesitating for that split second so they don't enter into that challenge, into that duel, into that difficult moment. There was none of that today. None. And it sounds like something obvious. It sounds like something that should just be the norm, but it isn't. Even, I was listening to TalkSport the other day, and Jermaine Pennant and maybe Darren Bent, I think it was, they were kind of talking. I think it was actually someone else. It was Jermaine Pennant and someone else. Anyway, they were talking about the mentality of a player when you're kind of at the end of the season, people thinking about their holidays, this, that. Yeah, I get that they were talking about players that don't have anything to play for because of the league position of their team. But what I'm trying to get at here is that these players are not perfect. We have expectations of them as fans. Very often, actually, do you know what? They're not as strong and as robust as what we hope or think that they should be. Sometimes they do bottle it. Sometimes they do just think, don't fancy putting in the hard yards today. And the performance today, my God, every single player. In the first 10 minutes, I have to admit, it wasn't looking good. And there were a few players, and I'll say primarily Jorginho and Ødegaard, that in my opinion stepped up. Experienced players. I know Ødegaard's very young, but he's got experience. He's been in some big environments, for example, Real Madrid. And obviously Jorginho, he's been and done it all in football. Now, they made sure. It was almost like a squadron. They're not going to leave any man behind. They made sure that they're going to step up and they're going to drag everyone else with them. I absolutely loved it. That goal that came against a run of play, I think we had no touches in the Newcastle area. We had no shots, nothing. We had posed no threat. And then, happened to be Jorginho to Ødegaard assist and goal from the two main players of this game. Now, it wasn't even the goal that I'm talking about. It was just the fact that they were making sure that, they were shouting or talking, not even shouting, that makes it sound bad, but talking throughout the game, getting everyone G'd up, leading by example, not wasting the ball. We looked shaky, but they looked like, actually, do you know what? There were some leaders on the pitch. And I'm just so proud of that performance because, obviously you want to see your team go and play really, really good football, but you can't have that every week. But what you can have every week is this desire, this effort, this willingness to track back, to work hard. I could probably pick out about 10 examples in this game where players really, really worked. And, even that, I could do more, but it was brilliant to see all the players doing that. Whether you were forwards, whether you were midfielders, defenders, whatever it was, people were doing the difficult things and they were doing it willingly. And I just loved seeing that. It's a reflection of the fact that this team is a proper team. You look at other teams in the league, and when you look at them and you think to yourself, hold on a second, you've got really, really good players, but your league position is awful. So, for example, Chelsea or Tottenham even, for example, that is because they are not doing the hard yards. They are not helping each other out. And today, honestly, Granit Xhaka, how good was he? I mean, I know he loses his head a little bit and gets involved in things or whatever, but he applied himself so well. There was that one moment in the game that for me was probably the embodiment of the entire game. I know it sounds silly because Odegaard's strike, what a brilliant strike, but I preferred what, like in terms of my highlight of the game, was what Xhaka did, tracking back to stop Joe Willock with a certain goal. It was just, you know, as I say, embodied the performance, and it's so far from the Granit Xhaka that we knew. Credit needs to go to Mikel Arteta for this, because when we're talking about, you know, a group of players that isn't completely different to what used to be a holiday camp at Arsenal, they are now absolutely whipped into shape and playing like the manager wants. And obviously Arteta, his non-negotiables, this is what he was talking about. This is the manifestation of those non-negotiables that he was talking about. And it just makes me happy. It makes me proud. You know, when you win sometimes and it's an easy 3-4, 5-0 win, you look at it and you say to yourself, yeah, really, really good win. But often it tells your story about the opposition. In this league, no game should be easy. There's so much wealth in this league that every single team has got an abundance of good players. You used to talk about, oh, who are the best players outside of the top 4? Then it became, who are the best players outside of the top 6? People don't talk about that anymore because every team in this league has got really, really good players. I mean, you look at Leicester struggling with a player like Maddison, unbelievable. But the point is, because of the richness of this league and the amount of good players throughout the entire league, every single game really should be competitive. So when you see teams battering other teams, it's because they're not applying themselves. But Arsenal today, I just thought they showed, and Newcastle, to be fair to them, they showed that, you know, like basically how you need to apply yourself in this league to get results. And when you batter a team, sometimes it's because the other team isn't really trying. Why I love this game was that Arsenal won because of what Arsenal did, not because of what Newcastle didn't do. You cannot say, oh, Newcastle weren't at it, or they weren't trying, they were on holiday, or they didn't play well. Actually, I thought Newcastle did play well. They created a lot of chances. There should have been more goals in the game. But the two best keepers for me in the league this season, Ramsdale and Nick Pope, they were absolutely brilliant. I mean, some of the saves that we saw from Ramsdale and also Nick Pope, and, you know, both Arsenal and Newcastle hitting the woodwork as well. You know, maybe it should have been more than 2 goals, and on a different day, anything can happen. But on this day, I think Arsenal got exactly what we deserved. And I'll cover it in my 5 at 5 tomorrow. A few more of those examples that for me embodied the spirit of the game that we saw today. I asked this team in my last match review, at least keep Man City honest. That was my ask of this team. And that's what we've done. We've come here today, and this was a game where everyone looked at it on paper and they said, you know what, Arsenal might slip up against Newcastle. And we haven't. Now Man City have got Real Madrid, and I think they've got Everton in the league. They're 2 fixtures that aren't easy. Everton desperately trying to stay in the division, and obviously Real Madrid in the Champions League semi-finals, never going to be an easy game. But Arsenal are at least saying to Man City, you kept us honest. You always stayed there or thereabouts and made sure that we felt the pressure. Now we're doing the same thing to them. Man City, maybe a slight wobble yesterday against Leeds. Yes, they won the game, and, you know, Man City right now are in unbelievable form. But, you know, the silly penalty decision and then going to 2-1, it was a bit of a wobble. They haven't looked absolutely faultless. And I just hope that there's another twist in this season. I know it's a lot to ask because Man City need to drop points in 2 games, and really that needs to be a draw and a defeat. So I'm not even holding any hope. I just want Arsenal to not go out with a whimper. 2nd place confirmed. You know, it's tough to take. It's tough to take the fact that Man City are probably going to win this league, or 99% chance they're going to win this league. But at least Arsenal are going out fighting and keeping the pride up in this fan base for what has been a season of massive progress. So well done, Arsenal, on a brilliant win at a really, really difficult place. Let's just see what happens for the rest of the season. And I'll see you guys for my 5 at 5 tomorrow. Take care.